secretary.
Secretary, not sure.
Secretary? Secretary of what?
Annie Mame, this is your secretary.
My secretary?
I'm no one's secretary.
Secretary?
But secretaries talk to secretaries.
Ever seen Working Girl and thought, wow, office life looked glamorous and romantic? Or Mad Men, believing the office was more about martinis than memos? Well, that's Hollywood's version. I lived the real thing for many years, working as a secretary long before administrative assistant became the politically correct title. And let me tell you, the reality was a lot less glamorous and a whole lot messier. I was juggling bosses, phones, typewriters, and the occasional office drama that could rival a soap opera. And yes, there were a few office romances, but we'll save that juicy part for later. Before we had handy little apps to ping us about dental appointments or voice assistants taking our grocery lists, there was someone keeping entire businesses from crumbling, the secretary. These unsung heroes prevented offices from collapsing into total chaos, quietly organizing schools, law firms, government offices, and companies behind the scenes. Now picture juggling a clunky typewriter, a constantly ringing rotary phone or multi-button switchboard, and a demanding boss who dictates memos like an extreme sport. That was daily life. And somehow, secretaries made it all look effortless. Honestly, they deserved a medal. So grab your coffee or sharpen your number 2 pencil, because we're about to take a retro ride through the secret life of secretaries. Chapter 1: The Rise of the Secretary. Once upon a time, and by that I mean the late 1800s, the word secretary almost always meant a man. Yep, picture a Victorian guy with mutton chops scribbling notes for some industrial tycoon. He wasn't just a simple note-taker though, he was a gatekeeper, an assistant, and a trusted confidant to a powerful man. Then something changed everything. The typewriter. The first commercially successful model was invented by Christopher Latham Scholes in 1868. He was a newspaper editor who partnered with a firearms company, E. Remington and Sons, to manufacture it. Early models were blind typewriters. You couldn't see what you typed until the very end, making editing interesting to say the least. Remington also popularized the QWERTY layout, designed to prevent mechanical jams by separating commonly used letter combinations. When the typewriter became mainstream, it opened the doors for women to join the professional workforce. Typing was faster and more legible than handwriting, and a skilled typist could handle the work of multiple clerks. By the 1920s and 30s, secretarial work had become one of the few respectable white-collar jobs for women. Companies even had secretary pools, rooms full of women typing memos and balancing ledgers. But secretaries were more than just typists. They mastered shorthand, like Gregg shorthand, which looked like a secret code, allowing them to take dictation at lightning speed and transcribe it perfectly later. They managed massive filing systems, screened calls and visitors, and were the original gatekeepers of office secrets. Forget girl boss, these were the true office ninjas. As offices modernized, the typewriter evolved too. Electric models allowed for lighter, faster typing, with correction tapes and even early memory features. Secretaries became experts on these machines, knowing which models jammed less, which ribbon lasted the longest, and how to type so fast that a boss's dictation sounded like music. Mastering the newest typewriter could literally make you the office MVP. Later, even word processors and early computers began creeping in, but nothing replaced the skill, focus, and multitasking ability that a secretary had built over decades. Chapter 2: The Boss and the Secretary, a Delicate Dance. The office ecosystem revolved around a very specific partnership, the boss and the secretary. The boss was the public face, the big talker, the deal maker, the guy jetting off to schmooze clients. But none of it worked without the secretary, who handled everything else. Think of them as the air traffic controllers of corporate life. If the boss was the pilot, the secretary was the entire ground crew, flight tower, and emergency exit plan rolled into one. The main way bosses worked with their secretaries? Dictation.
What's dictation?
They'd rattle off half-formed thoughts while pacing around the office, and the secretary, armed with shorthand and nerves of steel, turned that ramble into a perfectly typed memo. Secretaries heard everything: confidential deals, private complaints, even the boss's love life. They were trusted to keep it quiet and keep it professional. And it didn't stop at work. A secretary might schedule a board meeting in one breath and then in the next book their boss's spouse's hair appointment or remember their dog's birthday. Travel was another big one. Pre-internet, arranging a business trip meant juggling airlines, hotels, car rentals, and time zones. Basically running a personal travel agency without the commission. If the boss had to fly out to a client dinner in Chicago, it was the secretary who made sure the flights connected, the hotel had a reservation, and that he didn't end up stranded in the wrong city with the wrong briefcase. They weren't just assistants, they were gatekeepers, problem solvers, and in many ways, the glue holding the whole machine together. In fact, many bosses leaned on their secretaries far more than they'd ever admit. Without them, meetings would be missed, deals forgotten, and contracts gathering dust. A good secretary wasn't just fast on the typewriter. They were quick on their feet, managing tempers, smoothing over office drama, and keeping the whole workplace from flying off the rails. Pop culture loved to play up this dynamic, sometimes glamorizing the boss and secretary trope, sometimes poking fun at it, but in reality, it was a partnership built on skill, trust, and plenty of behind-the-scenes juggling. Chapter 3: Tools of the Trade. Now let's talk some office gadgets, the retro heart of secretarial life. Typewriters, loud, heavy, unforgiving beasts. Mess up? Start over. Until liquid paper came along, that is. Magical white paint in a bottle that covered your mistakes and probably could strip car paint. Although you better wait until it was dry or you'd have another problem on your hands or your fingers. Carbon paper, the copy and paste of the pre-digital world. You wanted duplicates? Sandwich some carbon paper between sheets and hope you didn't smudge ink all over your hands. Electric typewriters, a glorious upgrade. Lighter touch, faster work. Felt like typing on the future. Dictation machines. Boss talks into a recorder. Secretary plays it back and transcribes. If your boss mumbled, you basically needed a decoder ring.
A decoder ring?
Rolodex, the ultimate status symbol. Your entire contact list on a giant spinning wheel of cards. One slip, and your career was hanging by a paperclip. Rotary phones. Stick your finger in, spin the dial, wait. One wrong digit at the end? Congratulations, you're back at square one. Fax machines. The brief glory of the 1980s. Send a page across town or across the country and wait while the screeching sounds of the fax machine announced to everyone that something important was happening. Of course, a paper jam could turn that moment of triumph into a full-blown panic. Copy machines. At first, they were mysterious beasts that smelled like hot ink and ozone. Mastering them was a rite of passage. Jams, streaks, and copies that came out crooked. And heaven help you if the toner exploded on your outfit before a meeting. Coffee pots, the unofficial lifeblood of the office. Whoever made the last cup without brewing a new pot? Instant office villain. A good secretary could balance the phones, the typewriter, and the percolator all at once. Offices in the 70s weren't exactly sleek or digital. They were loud with typewriters, cluttered with paper, and powered by the kind of coffee that was more punishment than perk. Communication was slow, everything was manual, and efficiency depended on how fast your secretary could type and how many carbon copies you could crank out. It was a whole different universe compared to today's tap and swipe convenience. So, if you were to drop a Gen Zer into a 1970s office, they wouldn't know what to do. You mean to call someone you had to dial with your finger and then what? Wait? They may have mastered TikTok dances, but try mastering carbon paper. Chapter 4. Secretaries and Pop Culture. Hollywood couldn't resist turning secretaries into icons, or occasionally into the butt of the joke. For decades, TV and film used the secretary role to reflect everything from glamour to grit to pure comedy. Here's some notable ones. Mad Men's Joan Holloway. Not just a secretary, but the queen of the office. Joan ran circles around her male bosses, managing everything in heels, a wiggle dress, and flawless lipstick. She was proof that the secretary often knew more about running the business than the men signing the checks. Miss Moneypenny. James Bond's loyal secretary, equal parts professional and irresistible. She kept MI6 from falling apart while tossing sly, flirtatious comments at 007. Always a step ahead, even if she never got to sip martinis in Monte Carlo. Shaken, not stirred. Working Girl. Tess McGill, played by Melanie Griffith, was the underestimated secretary who broke through the glass ceiling with grit, smarts, and an unforgettable 80s hairdo. Her journey screamed, "Don't underestimate the girl answering the phones. She might just take your corner office." 9 to 5. An 80s guilty pleasure. Dolly Parton, Jane Fonda, and Lily Tomlin gave secretaries the ultimate revenge fantasy. Tie up your sexist boss, take over the company, and actually run it better than he ever did. Comedy, yes, but also a mirror of the frustrations millions of real women felt in their workplaces. Murphy Brown. This hilarious show highlighted how chaotic the secretary role could be, with Murphy cycling through incompetent assistants while secretly relying on their skill to keep the newsroom afloat. From glamour girls to comic relief, pop culture couldn't decide whether secretaries were the power behind the throne or disposable office furniture. But one thing was clear. The job fascinated people because it was so relatable. The reality? The work was way more intense than Hollywood ever let on. Imagine being your boss's calendar, GPS, spell check, therapist, and Google, all without a single app or even the internet. So tell me in the comments, did you watch any of those shows or movies? Could you relate, or did you just cringe? And like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any more retro videos like this one. Chapter 5. Life Between the Files. The office, the hub of memos, typewriters, and secret crushes. Being a secretary wasn't just about juggling phones, filing cabinets, and a boss who thought dictating letters was a personality trait. It was also about navigating the social side of the workplace. Lunches with co-workers became mini escapes, a chance to gossip, vent, or share a laugh away from the boss's watchful eye. But maybe don't show up to the office after one too many margaritas. Still, friendships, flirtations, secret notes, and office romances added a welcome respite from the daily grind. Office fashion was its own kind of daily challenge. During the week, secretaries had to look polished. Pencil skirts, heels, crisp blouses, and perfectly pressed suits. Appearance mattered. You weren't just typing correspondence, you were also the face of the office in heels that could double as weapons. Pantyhose runs were a workplace emergency. Polyester was practically a uniform, and heaven help you if your shoulder pads slipped out of place. But come Friday, a little rebellion was allowed. Casual Fridays gave everyone a chance to swap heels for flats, skirts for jeans or comfy slacks, and finally breathe a sigh of relief before Monday rolled around again. And of course, if your boss wore the same suit every day, you still had to look like you were starring in a catalog every single day. And then there was Secretary's Day, when the boss suddenly remembered how essential you were. Flowers, cards, and chocolates might appear mysteriously on your desk, and an invitation to lunch. Lunch could be fun one moment, awkward the next, and occasionally a total minefield of miscommunication. You'd laugh over memos, search for the perfect thing to say, or sidestep an awkward advance. The best thing about it was getting out of the office and getting your lunch paid for until it was time to go back to work. Office friendships sometimes form quickly, often with people in the same department or next door. These allies helped you survive long meetings, impossible deadlines, and a boss who never forgot your mistakes, but sometimes forgot your name. Of course, running late, leaving early, or milking a coffee break was a subtle act of rebellion that became an unspoken office ritual. Romance wasn't always easy. A crush on a coworker could create a thrilling mix of excitement and chaos. Hollywood's version of the office romance was different than reality, which was often messy. Misread signals, awkward lunches, or whispered rumors spreading faster than a jam copier. Still, some of these connections became lifelong partnerships, proving that even among filing cabinets and endless paperwork, love and friendship could flourish. Chapter 6: Day-to-Day Grind. Being a secretary wasn't all glamour, typewriters, and office romance. There was the grind. Long hours, personality conflicts, and commutes that can make anyone question their life choices. Training sessions weren't just for the bosses. Secretaries often had to master new office procedures, learn shorthand techniques, or attend workshops to learn the latest typewriter, copier, or even early computer models. Presentations? You were often the one preparing the handouts, setting up the projector, and making sure the conference room looked perfect for the big meeting. Greeting clients was also part of the job, welcoming them with a smile, offering coffee, and making sure they felt important, whether you greeted them at the front desk or before the boss even entered the room. And yes, ordering lunch wasn't just calling the deli. It could be a logistical challenge, especially when you were coordinating multiple executives' preferences while balancing a dozen other tasks. Running errands was part of the territory too. Office supplies, last-minute courier drops, or even picking up that emergency cake for someone's birthday. Paychecks were respectable but not lavish. Vacations were short and had to be scheduled carefully to avoid chaos in the office. Personality conflicts were inevitable between demanding bosses, co-workers who hoarded gossip, or rotating temps who never quite got the shorthand you'd perfected over the years. The commute itself could be an adventure. Before GPS, you navigated traffic, streetcars, or public transit, often carrying a briefcase heavier than a small child because of paperwork, files, and of course, your lunch. Finding a parking spot was a mini victory, and then navigating stairs or elevators to finally reach your desk felt like an accomplishment before even starting the workday. Dress codes added another layer. During the week, it was all about polished, professional attire, blouses, skirts, and heels. But Fridays were casual, giving a tiny sigh of relief after a week of high-stakes multitasking. In short, the day-to-day life of a secretary was a whirlwind of training, presentations, conference room prep, errands, lunches, personality navigation, commutes, and surviving the unpredictable boss. It was organized chaos, and somehow they kept their cool under all that pressure. Chapter 7: The Fall and Evolution. Admins Today. By the 1980s, computers crashed the party. Word processors made typing easier, email made memos practically extinct, and calendar software replaced the giant desk planners that once ruled every secretary's world. And the fax machine? It had its brief moment of glory before quickly earning the title of most universally hated office gadget. By the 2000s, the word secretary had practically vanished, swapped out for the administrative assistant or executive assistant. But the role didn't die, it evolved. Admins took on bigger, higher-level responsibilities, managing budgets, coordinating entire executive teams, and supervising staff. The job gained respect, yes, but also a lot more pressure, and let's be honest, a lot more multitasking. And today, technology has taken over a huge chunk of the work. Virtual assistants schedule meetings, chatbots reply to emails, and AI transcribes conversations, organizes data, and even drafts messages. In other words, your secretary is now mostly a robot. Not as stylish as Joan Holloway and Mad Men, not swinging around in high heels, but definitely cheaper, and thankfully a lot less likely to steal your lunch from the fridge. Conclusion: the legacy. Secretaries may not be as common today, but their fingerprints are everywhere in modern work life. They were the multitaskers, the problem solvers, the people who kept businesses running smoothly when chaos was just one typo, or one spilled coffee, away. So next time your phone pings a calendar reminder, or Gmail autocorrects angle investors with angel investors, just remember, once upon a time someone did all of that by hand. With a typewriter, a rotary phone, and nerves of steel. Secretaries walked so your Google Calendar could run. If you enjoyed this trip down office memory lane, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more retrospective adventures. Got a favorite office story or memory from the past? Share it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Thank you so much for watching, and keep those typewriters clacking, or at least your keyboards. I'll see you next time.